Hello and welcome to Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Pendulum from Stonemaier Games. This is a game for 1 to 5 players that plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. It's essentially a worker placement game, but you can play it with simultaneous action selection. It also has variable player power as an option, and you can build up your player board to make the actions you take slightly different from your opponents. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the game. So the simultaneous action selection of this game is an option. You don't have to play it that way. It is how the game is designed, but there is a way to play without it, as well as the variable player powers. They actually suggest that you don't start with those. Here's our rule book. So here is the mechanic for removing the timer from the game, which would prevent those simultaneous action selection. It slows the game down a little and allows people who maybe have difficulty making actions quickly, makes the game a little easier for them. Also a couple advanced variants that you can play with. And then at the back here, you've got sort of a glossary that explains all the different cards and their actions. Here we have the solo rules, which I won't get into. And then a quick start sheet with your setup. And then the different actions you can take. And also another little cheat sheet on what the symbology of the game means. So at the top here, we got a little chipboard, punch out. Here's for the timer track. So again, this is if you don't want to play all at the same time, you can use this, and there's a little marker that comes with it that'll just track as you go down. You've got the council card, which just explains how the council phase works. You'll play through a number of council phases during the course of a game. It's basically the end of the round. And then we've got some punch outs, and these are just for vote tokens. So most of the resources in this game are limited except for votes. If you ever need to, you've got these 10-point markers for votes so that you can always gain votes. So here's our player board. Let's go ahead and take a look at that because that'll help explain the game a lot better. So it is double-sided. You're going to play on the side based on the number of players. So this side is for 4 to 5 players, which you can see down here. So you see all the different worker locations that you can send your workers to. Those are anything with a gold back to them. And essentially you're just going to take one of your workers and put it in that location, and that'll be an action that you activate. Over here we have a spot for province cards, which are cards you can gain throughout the course of the game that lets you modify your actions to gain additional resources. And then you've got a spot up here. This is called the prestige track, I believe, and it's essentially has 2 uses. One, it determines player order, which is really only important at the start of the game, but it also breaks ties, which is very important throughout the course of the game. Also, you get certain bonuses in the council phase based on where you are on the prestige track, and that's going to be determined by the amount of votes you have when you get to the council phase. If you have more votes than the person above you, you can move up on the prestige track. All right, let's get back to in the box here, and we've got our player boards here wrapped up. Let's get those out. So this is just an extra board here that will hold the council cards, which again are those bonuses you gain during the council phase. So that'll just sit off to the side. But we have our player boards here. So you can really distribute these any way that you want. Oh, here's our Autonomous board, which I'll get rid of for now. So first of all, these are an interesting texture. It's not really a linen texture. It's almost like a plastic texture to them. It makes them have a really nice weight to them, but it is a little odd. Not bad, just different. So at the beginning of the game, you can deal these out or possibly draft them however you'd wish. There are 2 sides to each board. So here you have the basic side, which all of these bonuses on the bottom are going to be the same. And then if you switch to the advanced side, you'll see now that the bonuses on the bottom are different. And that's the main difference between the regular and advanced side. They do suggest you play with the regular side for at least the first couple of games. Here you have your 3 types of resources, which you'll accumulate, and then your votes up here. These are essentially actions that you can select with your worker when you put them out that will give you these resources when you activate them. Up here you have a victory track, and the victory tracks are different. You can see the difference between these 2. This one has a much longer red track. And this is essentially how you determine who wins the game. So when you've gone through all the different rounds of the game, you've gone through all the council phases, at the very end, you're going to determine who wins. And that is determined by who has moved their victory point trackers into this box. So the first thing you're going to look at is, has anybody moved all 4 of their trackers, red, blue, yellow, and also gray, into this box? If somebody has, at least one player has, then that's going to be your win condition. If multiple people have, then you're going to look at this track and determine how far they've moved in that box. Basically, each one of these spots being a point. However, if nobody has all 4 of their tokens in this spot, then you're going to go backwards and you're going to count how many spaces away each player is from their tokens being in this spot. And then the person who has the least amount is going to be the winner. The one caveat to this is this gray token here. You cannot win unless this token has moved over. And you can see it's going to start here, so you're only going to have to move it once. But if at the end of the game, nobody has their gray token here, nobody will win. There'll be no victor. I'll just quickly show you the rest of the player boards. And there are 5 because you can play with up to 5 players. Let's look at what else we've got here. So a big aspect of this game is the timing aspect, which comes from these 3 hourglasses. If you want to play the game in real time, what you're going to do is you're going to move these hourglasses to their starting locations. So green would start up here, purple would start over here, and then black would start down here. You're going to allow them to drain all the way down, and then you're simultaneously going to flip all of them, but each one has a different timing to them. So the black one runs for 45 seconds, the green one for 2 minutes, and the purple one for 3 minutes. The purple one determines when the round ends. So there'll be tokens on this board over here by the purple sand timer, and when it flips, it'll knock these tokens off to the side, and when all 3 of those tokens have been knocked over, that's when you'll have a council phase, so the round will be over. The rest of these will move essentially at the time allotted to them. Now that's an action that a person can take to flip over a sand timer. So there's the possibility that a sand timer will run out or run for longer than its listed time, but typically that's not going to happen because people want those actions to become available. If you are playing in this real-time mode, then you'll flip these sand timers over to their next location and then take actions associated with them. The reason that's important is because these sand timers either prevent you from putting workers down or allow you to activate your workers. Essentially, when there is a sand timer at a row, so this sand timer is affecting all 4 of these locations, you cannot put workers there or pick them up. So you can place them at these bottom locations. However, the sand timer has to be there in order for you to activate a location. So let me go ahead and find some of our workers here to give you kind of a better explanation of how that works. Every player is going to have a certain number of workers. They have both large workers and small workers. If you've ever played Viticulture, which is another Stonemaier game, you'll kind of know the basic concept here. Small workers can go anywhere where there isn't already a worker, and then large workers can go wherever they want. And you have a few extra because you can gain more throughout the course of the game. But let's say, for instance, that this is the board state. There's no workers out, and I want to play in a black location. I can't play here because the sand timer is there. So instead, I'm going to play here. Now I can put that worker there, and even if I change my mind, I can pick the worker up at any time I want. But I can't activate the location because you can only activate locations when the sand timer is at that row. So when this sand timer moves and comes here, now I can activate this location. And you do that by moving through the arrow here, paying any resource that happens to be on this arrow, although there's none here, and then gaining whatever's at the bottom. And that's how you activate your workers. Now this worker is stuck here until the timer moves back here. And now because there's no timer here, I can remove workers from this location. So it's essentially a worker placement game that locks your workers in until a certain time period. That time period being the length of the timer, or if you're playing the untimed version, until everybody's taken their action. So you can see here, this black location has 45 seconds. That's the one that's going to activate the most, more than likely. Whereas the green one lasts for 2 minutes and the purple one for 3 minutes. So if you're predominantly putting your workers in the black locations, you're going to get the most use out of them. But then again, that's one of the strategies of the game, is to get the most use out of your workers for the time allotted to them. So let's go back to the other items we have here in the box. We've got a bag of vote tokens. These are all the same. There's no stickers or anything for them. They're just these square purple pieces, and these represent the votes that you'll gain throughout the course of the game. We've got some bags over here for the different resources. So the red resource is might, and each player will have a limited number of these. I believe it's 10. You can only ever have 10 at a time. But these are just little red cubes. Plastic red cubes, not wooden. We've got more red cubes. We've got yellow cubes representing money. Blue cubes, which I believe are influence. More money cubes. A whole bunch of extra bags. And then we've got some additional pieces here. So first of all, we have the time tracker. If you don't want to play in real time, this is a little time tracker that goes on that board we saw earlier. Every player is going to have one of these hexagonal pieces. That's going to be your turn order or favor track. We've also, each player's also got one of these little barrel tokens, which I'll explain later. And then we've got 3 of these purple time markers, which again are going to go over by its sand timer, and it's going to mark those locations off. And then when the sand timer moves over, it's going to knock them off the board, just so you know when it's time to call council and do the end of turn. Lastly, each player is going to get one of each color victory point marker. And again, that's just going to track your victory points of the different types. And then your one gray one will be down there. See, the last thing we got is a couple decks of cards. So here we have the province cards. These will be over here in this area, and there'll be 4 on the board at any one time. These are cards that you can gain throughout the course of the game. You see here that this is one of the locations where you can gain a province card. So if you put a worker here and pay your 4 military, you can gain any one of the face-up province cards. The way the province cards work is that they allow you to modify the actions on your board. So here are the province cards, and they are all named, although the names don't really have any impact on gameplay. So what happens when you gain a province card, so say I gain this card, I can attach this card to my player board. To do that, first of all, I have to match the background. So if I want to play it here, I have to use this side because those backgrounds match. Whereas if I want to play it here, I'll use that side. Blue would look like this, and yellow like this. Now, let's say I'll play it to the yellow. For the rest of the game, if I activate the yellow flag, which you can do at certain locations, you can activate the yellow flag here, the red flag up here, and so on. I'm going to gain whatever resources are listed here. So at the start of the game, I'll gain 2 gold for activating the yellow flag. But if I have this card, this province assigned here, I'll now gain 3 gold. If I assigned it here, instead of gaining 5 influence, I'll now gain 8. And this card in particular matches all these. So this is giving you more military for military, more influence for the influence track. But some of them go against that basic rule, such as this one. So here, I would now start gaining military whenever I activate the yellow flag. Instead of just getting money, I'd gain money and military. So it's a nice way to sort of augment your own actions to gain the resources that you specifically want. Here we have the council cards. And you'll gain council cards at the end of every round when you go to the council phase. You gain them based off of this track. So everybody will gain a council card. It's just, you may get the last one left. There are 2 types of council cards. There are blue ones. Actually, those aren't the council cards. Here we go. There are blue council cards. These are a little mixed up. But essentially, you're looking for the trophy. The trophy backs are the council cards. So there are blue cards, and then there are red cards. At the start of the game, you're going to take all the red cards, shuffle them together, put them at the bottom of the deck. And then most of the blue cards, you're going to remove, I believe, 10 of them, shuffle them, and put them on top of the red cards, and then deal out a certain number of them. So here is our council board. This spot is always this option. This yellow card goes here always. So these 2 spots are predetermined. And then you'll deal out 5 cards in total to these locations. And again, during the council phase, depending on in what order you are on the council, you'll get to choose one of these cards and activate them. If you do choose this card, it's going to flip over. It can only be done once per council phase. And then at the end of the council phase, it's going to flip back. Anything that's not chosen at the end of the council phase is going to get discarded. And then this board will be filled back up. This is also a timer for the game because you'll find that when you get to the last round, all that's left are red cards. And then the final council phase, you'll simply be doing the red cards for that phase. The other cards that we briefly saw here have backs determined by the player. So for instance, this player would get all the cards with this card back on it. And those cards will be in your hand. And you can play them whenever you want. And you have more than the 2 I'm showing you here. But essentially this card you could play for 1 of any resource, and then it goes here, creating a discard pile. And this one, I believe, allows you to pick up one of your workers, and it'll go here. And then you can gain these cards back to your hand by paying this cost here. So kind of like free actions that you can take to adjust your turn and maybe allow yourself to do something a little extra on that round. We've got another deck of cards here. And a lot of these are going to be the Autonoma cards. So the solo game cards. So I won't be going through those very much. There's all the Autonoma cards. These might actually be, oh, they're not quite all Autonoma cards. So again, the Autonoma cards, if you're familiar with how the Autonoma system works, I've never really played it. I know that Stonemaier includes it in all their games, but it's not something that I particularly get into. So I'll let you discover that on your own. We've got some cards here for the 5 characters. It just explains the cards in their set, those player-specific cards, a little bit better. And just gives you some general guidelines on how your character is played. We got some reminder cards of how the council phase works. And then this just reminds you that when a timer is on a location, you can't play workers. And then when the timer's not there, you activate the locations. So little cheat sheets, essentially. And then these are objective cards, which go along with this little token here, which is the last token we haven't looked at. This is how you move up your gray token, which again, you have to move in order to be considered for victory. There is a red council card that also allows you to move up this token, but it costs a lot of resources, so that is an option. But essentially, one of these cards is going to be out at a time, and it'll be out through the course of a round. And if you ever have this collection of resources, you don't have to pay those resources, but you simply take your token and put it on any location on the card. Now, if nobody has taken this token yet, this token will start on the card. If nobody has taken this token yet, then when you put your token there, you can choose to take it. And then your gray token, victory token, will move up one spot. If you don't want that token, or it's already been taken, then you're going to gain the bonuses here, which will move up your red and your yellow victory token one spot. And then the next round, this card will go away, and then you'll draw a new one. And that's it. That's everything you get in a copy of Pendulum from Stonemaier Games.